Christopher Walsh, a man of routine. His days, a symphony of grout lines and perfectly aligned ceramic squares. But beneath the surface, an unease stirred, a nagging question that refused to be silenced. Was this all there was? His dreams offered no respite. They were fragmented, chaotic, a whirlwind of unfamiliar landscapes and strange, beautiful people. Always there was a woman, her laughter echoing through the halls of his subconscious. The line between his waking life and the realm of his dreams was blurring. The world outside seemed to mirror his internal turmoil. Reports of natural disasters and strange occurrences were flooding the news. One evening, a chance encounter with an old man, a scholar of ancient lore, would change Christopher's life forever. The old man shared tales of forgotten gods and ancient prophecies, striking a chord within Christopher. The encounter with the old man had left an indelible mark on Christopher's soul. His work, once a source of comfort, now felt unbearably mundane. His dreams grew more vivid, the whispers of the past transforming into deafening roars. And always at the edge of his perception he saw her, the woman with eyes that held the secrets of the universe. He couldn't ignore the truth any longer. He was not Christopher Walsh, the bathroom Tyler. He was something else, something more. The whispers of Olympus haunted his waking hours, bleeding into the fabric of his reality. And then he found her. In a dusty tome, he discovered her, the woman from his dreams. Her name, Danielle, sent a jolt of electricity through his very being. As he traced the outline of her face, a torrent of memories flooded his mind. He saw Zeus, his own brother, ripping Danielle away from him. The weight of millennia of betrayal and loss crashed down on him. He, Christopher Walsh, was not merely a god. He was the rightful heir to Olympus, betrayed and forgotten by the brother he once loved. The revelation hit Christopher like a physical blow. He wasn't going mad, he wasn't dreaming. He was a god. His very being seemed to crackle with power, raw and untamed. He would reclaim what was his, he would have his revenge. He would find Danielle. The pull of his true nature was impossible to ignore. He felt the call of Olympus in his very bones. He stood amongst the ruins of Greek temples, feeling the echoes of ancient rituals. He was a god reborn, his powers returning with a vengeance. His journey wouldn't be easy. He needed allies, resources, and a strategy. His search for answers led him to the heart of Athens. Each encounter brought him closer to the truth. As he walked among mortals, he felt a strange sense of detachment. Yet he also felt a kinship with them, a recognition of their shared humanity. He used his powers sparingly, understanding the fragility of life. He was ready for the fight of his life. A palpable tension hung in the air, a premonition of impending chaos. Even the mortals, oblivious to the celestial drama unfolding above, could sense the shift. Storms raged with unprecedented fury. The earth trembled with unsettling regularity. The whispers of war, once confined to the darkest corners of the cosmos, were growing louder, impossible to ignore. On Olympus, the whispers had become a roar. The palace, once a beacon of light and laughter, was now shrouded in suspicion and fear. Zeus, his grip on power weakening, had become a tyrant, his paranoia fueled by the prophecy of his downfall. He saw enemies everywhere, his wrath falling upon even his most loyal followers. Christopher, his powers returning with a vengeance, became a magnet for those who sought to challenge Zeus's rule. He was a symbol of hope, a reminder of a time when Olympus had been ruled with wisdom and compassion. Gods and goddesses who had long suffered in silence began to flock to his banner, drawn to his strength, his charisma, and his unwavering determination to restore balance to the cosmos. Amongst Christopher's growing number of allies was Poseidon, god of the seas. Once a staunch supporter of Zeus, Poseidon had grown increasingly disillusioned with his brother's tyrannical rule. The seas themselves mirrored Poseidon's fury, churning with an anger that threatened to engulf the world. The whispers of war were becoming a deafening roar, and the fate of Olympus and perhaps the world hung precariously in the balance. Poseidon, his jovial demeanor replaced by grim determination, unleashed the Kraken upon the world. The monstrous leviathan rose from the depths, its roar a primal scream of defiance. The seas became a battleground, waves transformed into weapons of unimaginable power. Coastal cities were reduced to rubble. Mortals fled in terror, their prayers unanswered. Reality seemed to unravel, the line between mortal and celestial realms blurring. Christopher, though allied with Poseidon, watched the chaos with a heavy heart. He understood the necessity of war, but the cost weighed heavily upon him. True victory wouldn't be achieved through brute force alone. He needed to find a way to defeat Zeus without endless conflict. He sought Athena, goddess of wisdom, her counsel unmatched. Together, they devised a plan to exploit Zeus's weaknesses. Their alliance, a beacon of hope, aimed to forge a new order from Zeus's reign. Section 3. The Shadow of the Underworld. As the war for Olympus raged, Hades, god of the underworld, emerged from the shadows. Hades, often misunderstood, had remained neutral, ruling his shadowy realm. But the war's chaos stirred him from indifference. Souls of fallen warriors flooded his domain, their cries echoing. Even the dead were not immune to Zeus's chaos. Christopher embarked on a perilous journey into Hades's domain. He sought Hades's knowledge and power to tip the war's scales. Hades was not known for his forgiveness or involvement. Intrigued by Christopher, Hades agreed to a meeting. Their negotiations were tense, fraught with mistrust. The fate of Olympus hung in the balance as they forged an uneasy alliance. Section 4. The Walls of Olympus. The final battle for Olympus was upon them. The forces of Poseidon, their ranks swelled by the creatures of the deep and bolstered by Christopher's growing legion of followers, laid siege to the celestial city. The once impregnable walls of Olympus, now scarred and cracked by the fury of the Kraken, shuddered under the onslaught. Zeus, his face contorted with rage and desperation, unleashed the full might of his powers, lightning bolts raining down from the heavens, incinerating those who dared to defy him. But his power, once absolute, was waning, his fear and paranoia betraying his diminishing control. Christopher, at the heart of the battle, fought with the fury of a god scorned, his sword, a blade of pure celestial fire, cutting through Zeus's forces like a hot knife through butter. He moved with a speed and agility that belied his human form, his every blow infused with the righteous anger of 1,000 years of betrayal. Around him, the tide of the battle was turning. The other gods, inspired by Christopher's courage and leadership, fought with renewed vigor, their fear of Zeus replaced by a desperate hope for a brighter future. The very air crackled with divine energy, the clash of titans illuminating the heavens with an eerie, otherworldly glow. The fate of Olympus and perhaps the world itself hung precariously in the balance, the outcome uncertain, the price of victory already too high. Section 1. The Fury of a Forgotten God. The battle raged around Christopher, a chaotic symphony of clashing powers and desperate cries. He moved through the fray with a grace that belied his raw strength, deflecting Zeus's lightning bolts with a flick of his wrist, his own powers surging through him like a tidal wave. He was a force of nature unleashed, the embodiment of 1,000 years of pent-up rage and sorrow. Zeus, his face contorted with a mixture of fear and fury, realized with growing horror that he had underestimated his forgotten brother. Christopher fought not just with power, but with a righteous anger that shook the very foundations of Olympus. The other gods, sensing the shift in power, hesitated, their loyalty to Zeus wavering in the face of Christopher's unwavering determination. Ares, the god of war, drunk on the thrill of battle, charged at Christopher, his axe a blur of motion. Christopher, without even turning to face his attacker, deflected the blow with his sword, the impact sending a shockwave through the air. Ares stumbled back, his arrogance shattered by Christopher's casual display of power. Christopher fixed his gaze on Zeus. His voice, when he spoke, was low, laced with a chilling calm. Christopher, as narrator. "It's over, brother. Your reign of fear ends now." Zeus, his eyes blazing with defiance, raised his lightning bolt, ready to unleash the full force of his remaining power. The fate of Olympus, and perhaps the world itself, hung precariously in the balance. As Christopher and Zeus faced off, a tremor shook the battlefield, more powerful than any before. The air grew heavy, thick with a palpable sense of dread. From the ground beneath the warring gods, a chasm ripped open, splitting the earth with a deafening roar. The chasm pulsed with an eerie green light, the stench of sulfur and decay wafting up from its depths. From the depths of the chasm, creatures of nightmare crawled forth. They were the denizens of Tartarus, the darkest depths of the underworld. Beings of pure shadow and malice, their very presence a violation of the natural order. They surged onto the battlefield, a tide of claws, teeth, and glowing eyes, drawn to the conflict like moths to a flame. The arrival of the Tartarus horde threw the battle into chaos. The gods, both those loyal to Zeus and those who had rallied to Christopher's banner, found themselves fighting side by side against a common enemy. But the creatures of Tartarus, driven by a hunger that knew no bounds, cared nothing for the intricacies of celestial politics. They tore through the ranks of both armies, their claws ripping through divine flesh as easily as mortal. Christopher, his initial shock giving way to a cold fury, realized that Zeus, in his desperation, had unleashed a force that threatened to consume not just Olympus, but the entire world. The prophecy, it seemed, had been twisted, manipulated by Zeus's paranoia. This wasn't just about a changing of the guard on Olympus. This was about the survival of all creation. As the battle raged, a figure emerged from the chaos. Danielle, her beauty even more radiant amidst the carnage, her eyes filled with a sorrow that cut through Christopher like a knife. She moved between the warring gods, her presence a beacon of sanity in the maelstrom, her voice carrying over the din of battle.
"Stop this madness!" she cried, her voice filled with both love and despair. "Brother, can you not see what you are doing? You are destroying everything we fought for, everything we believed in."
Christopher, his heart torn between his love for Danielle and his fury towards Zeus, faltered, his sword lowering slightly. Zeus, too, seemed to hesitate, a flicker of recognition in his eyes as he looked upon the woman he had claimed as his own for 1,000 years. Danielle moved between them, her touch gentle, yet insistent as she laid a hand on each of their chests.
"Remember who you are," she whispered, her voice laced with both power and pleading. "Remember the bond you once shared, the love that bound you together. Do not let this darkness consume you. Turn back from this path before it is too late."
For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. The creatures of Tartarus, sensing the sudden hesitation of the gods, paused in their assault, their glowing eyes fixed on the three figures at the heart of the conflict. The fate of Olympus, and perhaps the world itself, rested on the choices that Christopher and Zeus would make, in the next heartbeat. Christopher, his heart heavy with the weight of Danielle's plea, felt the anger drain out of him, replaced by a profound weariness. He had fought his way back from oblivion, reclaimed his power, and faced his brother in battle. But at what cost? Was Olympus, was Danielle, worth the destruction that was unfolding around them? He glanced at Zeus, saw the conflict mirrored in his brother's eyes. For a fleeting moment the years melted away, and Christopher saw not the tyrant, not the usurper, but the brother he had once loved, the god he had fought beside in the distant past. And in that moment, Christopher knew that there was only one choice, one path that offered even a glimmer of hope. Christopher, brother, let us end this together. With a roar that shook the heavens, Christopher and Zeus turned as one, their combined powers blazing forth like a supernova. The creatures of Tartarus, momentarily blinded by the sheer intensity of the light, reeled back, their advance halted for the first time since they had crawled out of the abyss. The other gods, sensing the shift in the tide of battle, cast aside their own rivalries and doubts. Inspired by the sight of the two brothers fighting side by side, they rallied to their cause, their combined powers creating a wall of celestial energy that held back the tide of darkness. The battle raged for what felt like an eternity, a chaotic symphony of clashing powers and desperate cries. But slowly, inexorably, the combined might of the gods began to push back the creatures of Tartarus. One by one, the monstrous forms were forced back towards the chasm from whence they came, their cries of rage and frustration echoing through the ravaged landscape. Christopher and Zeus, their powers intertwined in a display of celestial might the likes of which Olympus had never seen, stood at the forefront of the assault, their every blow a testament to the bond they had rediscovered, the love for their family, for Olympus, for the world they had sworn to protect. As the last of the Tartarus horde was driven back into the abyss, a profound silence fell over the battlefield. The air, moments ago thick with the stench of sulfur and the cries of battle, was suddenly clear, the only sound the gentle whisper of the wind as it swept across the ravaged landscape. Dawn broke over Olympus, a new day dawning on a world teetering on the brink. The sky, a canvas of bruises from the recent conflict, slowly began to lighten, the first rays of sun painting the clouds with hues of pink and gold. Christopher, his breath ragged, his body weary but his spirit soaring, lowered his sword, the celestial fire that had imbued it with such terrible power receding, leaving behind a simple, elegant blade. Around him the other gods, their faces etched with exhaustion but their eyes shining with a newfound hope, surveyed the scene. The cost of victory had been high, the losses staggering, but Olympus, against all odds, still stood. Zeus, his arrogance humbled, his power diminished but his spirit unbroken, stood beside Christopher. The two brothers, their faces bearing the marks of countless battles, their eyes reflecting the shared grief of 1,000 years of betrayal and loss, met each other's gaze. A silent understanding passed between them, a recognition of the bond they had so nearly destroyed. Danielle, her face awash with tears of relief and gratitude, made her way through the battlefield, her steps light, her presence a beacon of hope amidst the devastation. She embraced Christopher, their reunion a testament to the enduring power of love, a promise of healing and renewal in a world desperately in need of both. In the aftermath of the battle, a profound change swept over Olympus. Zeus, his reign of fear and paranoia shattered, relinquished his throne, acknowledging that his time as king was over. A new era dawned, one of balance and cooperation with Christopher, the forgotten god, as its reluctant architect. Yet Christopher, despite his power, his victory, felt a growing sense of unease. The memories of his past life, once fragmented and dreamlike, had returned with a vengeance, flooding his mind, threatening to overwhelm him. He remembered the weight of responsibility, the crushing burden of ruling a kingdom as fractious and volatile as Olympus. and he realized that he no longer desired it. He had tasted mortality, experienced the simple joys and sorrows of a life lived on a human scale. He had loved, lost, and found redemption in the most unexpected of places. He had rediscovered his humanity, and in doing so he had found a peace that had eluded him even during his reign as a god. Turning away from the glittering spires of Olympus, Christopher took Danielle's hand, their fingers intertwining, their touch a silent promise of a future built on love, understanding, and a shared appreciation for the beauty and fragility of life, both mortal and divine. He had finally remembered who he was, not the forgotten god of Olympus, but Christopher, a man who had found his way back from the abyss, his heart forever bound to the woman he loved, his spirit forever touched by the echoes of both heaven and earth.